Alrighty then. So once again, from sea to sea, from planet to planet, star to shining star, and all that other stuff. We are Strange Universe Radio, the radio show that can be used as a nightlight or a camp light. The program that's marinated in weeks for a special sauce, so you can taste the difference. The show that's like watching lesbian porn. You never quite know when it's over, and bringing you the pinnacle of 16.4 billion years of evolution. And the program Jesus loves, but everyone else thinks it's kind of a jerk because it's a strange universe and we just work here. Transmitting from the G to the O to the D, the generator, operator, destroyer of the light-encoded reality matrix, here to save the soul, S-O-U-L, survival of universal life. And, of course, the radio show hated and reviled by Sarah Palin, the Kardashians, Paris Hilton, Bruce Jenner, and Snooki, although Snooki thinks we're kind of hot. I think Bruce Jenner thinks we're kind of hot, too, but I don't know.
No. Caitlin thinks you're kind of hot. Bruce don't care.
Yeah, Bruce doesn't care. So, anyway, I am your host. On every continent of the world, there's a sandwich named after me. My hands are like Richard Brown's suede leather. Presidents take my birthday off, and I never argue when the word genius is applied to me, so I just sit back and give no opinion. So welcome to Strange Universe Radio. Went to go see Huey Lewis in the news. Actually, again, Friday night, one of those action, adventure, rock and roll weekends. Friday night, went to go see Three Dog Night, and Jefferson, what was an airplane is now a starship. Although there's only one member of the original band. How they can still call themselves Jefferson Starship when there's only one member of the original band in it. And he's a weird, kind of curly, gray-haired, leaping gnome. And their new singer, you figure if you got an established name as a rock and roll band, you could get a new singer that's somebody hot. All I can tell you is that there has to be some common sense applied when women wear spandex. I mean, there's got to be a weight limit somewhere because there's only so much that spandex can hold in. When you dress like a circus animal and get up in front of people and you look like a very tightly squeezed bag of ham, or you wear a shirt that looks like a bunch of puppies fighting under a blanket. Yeah, that's all I can say about their new lead singer. And their new lead singer looks like her boyfriend has a shirt that says, "If you can read this shirt, the bitch fell off." That's all I can say. So she had a good voice. She hit the high notes. She did the one pill makes you smaller, one pill makes you large. One pill, drugs. Let's do drugs. Let's all go to hippie San Francisco. George Harrison, who was a friend of mine, said about when he visited the Love Child late 1960s in Haight-Ashbury, he said, "It's just a bunch of old geezers passing out drunk so they can shag young chicks." I was like, yeah, that's almost exactly right, George. Haight-Ashbury, which was, when I grew up there, I hated San Francisco. I lived in the burbs. I was like 30 miles south in Atherton, and you did not want to go to Berkeley. You did not want to go to San Francisco. It was scary. There was weird, hairy, naked, smelly, drugged people there. Now it's just hobos. It's all just cannibal hobos. And they're a carpet. There's just a carpet of hobos. You do not even touch the pavement when you walk down Market Street. You're stepping from one hobo to the next, which is pretty good because then you don't have to put your toes in the sea of urine that's usually washing down that place. It's just, I'm sorry, San Francisco is just disgusting now. Their whole Brave New World has turned into, I can't even tell you, it's like a huge latrine, if you will. So anyway, Three Dog Night at Jefferson Starship. They sang, even my wife Melissa was like, "Oh, they've done a few more songs that I even recognize." Because I dragged Melissa to these old rock and roll, hairy, long, beardy guy shows, and she's like, "Oh, I recognize the song." And the stuff she wants to go to is coming up next week: B-52s, Echo and the Bunnymen with English Beat. That's her stuff. Whenever I get our iPads mixed up and I go to the gym and I listen to her music, I feel like I've just stuck my head into some kind of electronic washing machine. So anyway, Jefferson Starship, who their lead singer was a guy. I started hating Jefferson Starship because their lead singer used to be the lead singer of Elvin Bishop, and their lead singer had a great voice, but he looked like Doug Henning's ugly brother. Had teeth that looked like you could eat steak through a fence. Had this big mustache. He looked like a Q-tip that somebody put a Doug Henning head on. And it was so weird because Elvin Bishop I used to love Elvin Bishop, and because he was a great guitar player, and they had the singer, Mickey somebody or other. But they did Fooled Around and Fell in Love. Fooled Around and Fell in Love. And then he became the lead singer for Jefferson's Airplane, then Starship. And I just remember hating him when he was in Elvis Bishop, and then hating him even more when he was in Jefferson's Starship. Then Huey Lewis. So that was Three Dog Night. Then Three Dog Night came out. And it was very funny because Three Dog Night did Mama Told Me Not to Come, which was written by Randy Newman. They also did You Can Leave Your Hat On originally, before it was turned into a hit by Joe Cocker, and then, well, it wasn't really a hit by Joe Cocker. It became a hit when it was used in 9.5 Weeks, and Kim Basinger did that hot dance to it. And by the way, 9.5 Weeks is the best movie Kim Basinger ever did because she's just in barely clothed and barely speaks through the whole movie, which is why she's great, because she's a terrible actress. Absolutely terrible. Even when she won the Supporting Actress Academy Award. How she swung that, I have no idea. But it's because she was made up to look like Veronica Lake. And again, didn't really talk outside of just getting jumped on by Russell Crowe. And that movie was LA Confidential. That's what she won she won the Academy Award for Supporting Actress. And if people remember, let me go into the trivia again, but Alec Baldwin and Kim Basinger, they were the terror twins. They were the two worst people. I'm sure apart they're probably pretty nice. Well, no, I disagree. But those two together are single-handedly the worst person you will ever meet and or know. They're monster 100-foot tall Jennifer Lopez, those two together. So we saw Three Dog Night, and Three Dog Night did Mama Told Me Not to Come. And they were joking around the fact, now these dudes are, late 60s, early 70s. And they were commenting about the fact that Mama Told Me Not to Come may have been the first rap song. So the hilarious part about this is watching a gang of 70-year-old men, and the lead singer twisted his hat, did some funny gang signs and all this, and they turned Mama Told Me Not to Come into like a rap hip-hop Casey and the Sunshine Band kind of tune. It's just nothing funnier than, I can't even say, just old men, not even middle-aged men, but old men, like making fun of black rappers. It's hilarious. And so no auto-tune there. Then last night, oh my Lord, I have been a fan of Huey Lewis and the News I've been a fan of Huey Lewis and the News since 1975. So I'm not even sure they've been around that long, but I've been a fan since that long. We used to see them in clubs in Northern California. Huey Lewis, whose real name is Hugh D. Craig. Huey Craig. That would have worked. Huey Craig, but Huey Lewis. Huey Lewis and the News. My name's Huey Lewis, and you've just heard the news. And their big break in 1975, I think it was their first big hit, Working for a Living. And we saw them open for the Doobie Brothers at the Oakland Coliseum, I think in 1975, when I was 4. I was in high school at some point. Anyway, so it was great to see them. They have not been on the show circuit for quite some time. And I'm telling you, this little girl was sitting in front of us was like, oh my God, I've never heard music like this before. And it was her first time seeing Huey Lewis, and they were doing all the doo-wop stuff, and they have he's got a 9-piece band behind him with a horn section and genius, just great stuff. So it's, he did a couple of new songs as well. They do some doo-wop stuff, and he's one of the great voices in rock and roll. I would say Huey Lewis, Don Henley, Joe Cocker, Mick Jagger, just great voices in rock and roll. And he's still around. He's 65 now, and he had not played the O.C. Fair. The last time we saw him at the O.C. Fair, we took my buddy Robert Kelly, the kind of redemption guy, and we had some guy behind us who was giving us grief because we were standing up and dancing, and he was screaming at us to sit down. So we actually we got moved to a luxury box, and we got him ejected using my lawyer Jufu.
Yeah, you know, when I was in that situation at a Megadeth concert, I actually decked the guy in the face after he spit in mine and made him move.
Yeah, but that's just what you do at a Megadeth concert. Don't you just sit there and, when you're dancing, don't you just all spit on each other?
Yeah, but there's difference between like drooling over your favorite band versus getting your face and spit in your face because you didn't like my hair.
Yeah, there we go. I just thought that was kind of a tradition there. You all dance in the mosh pit and spit on each other.
But the problem was that we weren't in the mosh pit, so he thought because he paid for a seat that no one had a right to stand in front of him. You want to sit down and have your Slurpee at the Megadeth. Like, this guy was sitting there trying to eat his thing, sitting down, and he's like yelling at me for standing at a heavy metal show.
I know, it's stupid.
Guys,
Now,
get floor seats. But I wasn't allowed, so
you kind of have a right to do it if everybody else is sitting down and just one guy is standing up. Then you can say, "Come on, man! Everybody else is. Could you please down in front, please?" But if everybody else is standing up, it's
that's what I told him before things went south. I pointed, I said, like, dude, you gotta tell me to sit down, and you gotta tell all these people to sit down.
Exactly.
I'm standing because this is Megadeth.
Yeah, and even if you sat down, you're like, "Can you see now, jackass?" No. So I'm going to stand up as well. So yes, it's all about that kind of etiquette. Anyway, Huey Lewis in the news. So we're going to play some Huey on the show today. I've been God. Let me see. Wow, I've just had my head. I don't know where it's been at. I've been doing legal stuff for people and just writing documents and doing all kinds of things. They're telling me that the entire state is on fire, and I haven't seen a newscast since Thursday, I think. I haven't even watched TV because I've been working and writing, and I'm going to be going to Las Vegas this Saturday, and we're working on some things. It's kind of fun because there's a radio gig that's going on where they want me to do, I guess, an hour or something pre-recorded where I'm talking about weird things in space or something. That's kind of cool. And then we're also hooking up with the Toastmasters are trying to get into radio as well. So, and this is a huge international organization. They're having their big convention in Las Vegas. So myself and a buddy of mine are going to go out there and kind of schmooze with stuff. I'm also being told, apparently, and I hate to even say it because who knows, but apparently we've gotten a green light on our film production company, and they're going through all the particulars, and I'm not even clear as to what they're doing, but they said, yes, we're going to fund this. This is all great. And we're going down some sort of list of particulars of things we want or need or something. And the claim is it's going to be somehow, I don't want to jinx anything, somehow done by Wednesday at some point. So we'll see if any of that happens. Also, so we'll do horoscopes a little bit early. We'll see if Ben Fulford has a thing today. I'm not sure if he does or not, but we'll just check and see if he has a thing. And I'm still, we're in Leo right now, and it's one of those things where there's been a big fuss in the papers. I think Mia Farrow, obviously, and good for her. She's, she knows how to adopt and raise kids that Woody Allen likes to marry. But Zimbabwe suspends the killing of wildlife near the park where Cecil had roamed. This is South Africa. I'm still mad about this lion getting killed. And I'm not sure if this is real or not. So it's kind of one of those weird things where we're not sure whether or not it's just people tweeting stuff or whether or not it's a hoax of some kind. But in South Africa, in the wake of an international furor over the death of a well-known lion, the Zimbabwe Parks and Wildlife Authority has suspended the hunting of wildlife. First off, why are they allowing the hunting of wildlife in the first place, including lions, leopards, and elephants? They actually have hunting for these animals in areas outside Hwange National Park. Of course, it was, well, whatever. The announcement Saturday, days after the fatal shooting, of Cecil the lion. I was on the understanding that he shot him with a bow and then chased him around for hours and hours and hours and finally killed him. But Cecil the lion said hunts would be allowed only if authorized by the head of the Wildlife Authority, which I thought they already were, and if hunters were accompanied by park staff, which again I thought they already were. A suspension on bow hunting, unless confirmed and authorized by the authority, also is taking effect. Notice they don't mention anything about guns. On Saturday, a Zimbabwe conversation group said that a lion named Jericho, the brother of Cecil, had been shot dead by hunters. But the Zimbabwe Conservation Task Force, which previously broke the news of Cecil's murder, published a post on Facebook expressing disgust and sadness at Jericho's killing. But other reports said Jericho was alive. Cecil was lured from a protected national park in Zimbabwe. By the way, basically using meat on a lure, because that's pretty much how gentle he was. He was so used to people. But he was killed in early July in a bow and arrow hunt described as illegal by Zimbabwean authorities, who said Friday that they were seeking the extradition of Minnesota dentist Walter Palmer. Which again, this guy did a bad thing, but I don't believe in extraditing people out of their countries because it's jurisdictional, and obviously lion hunting is not illegal in Minnesota, I guess. Yeah,
but Sean, you know what I do say though? I think that it's fair. I think that it's fair to at least ask him to come and testify, because I believe that this guy was a patsy for a wider issue, because he made his initial statement, and I'm going to imagine it's true that everything he did was in compliance with his hunting guides, the people that were there to tell him you're doing everything legal, everything is fine, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing.
I was about ready to comment on that Palmer's reported to paid $50,000 to hunt and kill a lion. But what does he know? Again, he's in Africa. He's being guided by these guys, and $50,000 to hunt and kill a lion. First off, as Jimmy Kimmel said, isn't there pills for that if you think your penis isn't up to it?
Yeah.
Global outrage over Cecil's killing was followed by social media shockwave from reports of Jericho's shooting. Within an hour, this is Jericho's shooting, his brother now. Conservation groups posting that attracted the attention of Mia Farrow and other celebrities, because celebrities like to do anything that's not controversial. It's like, oh, I like puppies. Don't get involved in anything important, celebrities, please. Just keep your opinions to yourself. But Cecil the lion's brother, Jericho, was just killed by an illegal hunter. So we don't know if this is true or just Mia Farrow's hysteria. Of course, she was right about her daughter boofing Woody Allen. He had been protecting Cecil's cubs, is what she said, Farrow tweeted. Minutes after the first report surfaced, her post was quickly retweeted nearly 500 times. Wow, I didn't even know Mia Farrow would have 500 friends. In its statement, the conservation group said, "We are absolutely heartbroken. There was no immediate confirmation from officials about Jericho's slaying. The conservation organization said it would provide details when they became available." Now, let me give you some post Cecil the lion psychological ops here. The lion slaying story is likely a psyop for purposes that I don't comprehend. I mean, the lion had a name, Cecil, and Cecil in Zimbabwe only means and stands for one thing, and that's Cecil Rhodes. And Cecil Rhodes was the anti-American communist Marxist founder of Rhodesia, whether you know it or not. So extracting the dentist from Minnesota to stand trial in Zimbabwe is probably the next stage of the psyop to get people talking about how effed up Zimbabwe is, which it is. I'm hoping that the currency revalues in Zimbabwe, because in my wallet, and I carry it around just to show people what Rhodesia went from, which was the breadbasket of Africa and a social and politically stable country where everybody worked, had the highest standing of living in Africa, and that's when it was Rhodesia, when it was being run by primarily the British and the Dutch. And then they handed it over to the Rhodesians, and it turned into Zimbabwe. And I have a $1 trillion Rhodesian note. It's worth about $20. But it's $1 trillion. And if the Zimbabwe, I don't know, Zimbabweletta, whatever it is, if the Zimbabwean dollar actually just refinances to $1, I'm going to be rich. But they can't leave Zimbabwe alone at this point. They reference Zimbabwe in their storm roof thing via Rhodesia. Canadian Broadcasting, CBC, is showing 4 white lion cubs born in Russia's newest land, the Crimea. White lions, white justice, white hunters, kill whitey. Because Zimbabweans don't give a crap about that lion, even if it had a name. They don't care. They're too busy starving because they're Zimbabwe now and not Rhodesia. Now, if the Minnesota hunter and dentist had bagged an English monarch, being hunted the queen, oh no, I've been shot with an arrow, they might notice even in Zimbabwe. And as a point of interest, anyone who accepts a Rhodes Scholarship, like Bill Clinton as an example, is technically a traitor to the United States. At USC, we have Pat Hayden as our athletic director, and he accepted a Rhodes Scholarship as well. And I'm not too keen on him either. So, as most Universal Strangers found out last week, before it was news, by the way, Canada has entered into an election campaign. Prime Minister Harper went to the Queen's Governor General of her private territory of Canada and asked him, Michael Johnson, to dissolve Parliament, triggering election laws. Harper did this on a Canadian holiday, and almost no one outside of Canada understands. It's basically called the Long Weekend. It's a 3-day weekend, including the first Monday of August. And it has a different name in every single province and territory. It's a day that's like, we just don't feel like working. It isn't a national statutory holiday. The choice was telling because the long weekend symbolizes what everyone is calling the Long Campaign, which is the longest campaign in Canadian history since, 18 something. But Harper opponents say he first rigged election spending laws with the fair elections legislation so that now he and his conservatives will now receive 50% matching funds from the federal coffers, as the richest party will easily outspend and outlast the other two parties. So individual candidates get 60% in matching funds. And the two opposition figures are Justin Trudeau and Thomas Mulcair. This is how strange this show is, that we actually care about Canadian politics, a country that's twice the size of the United States, but only has 33 million people in it. And by the way, in Vancouver, they're all Chinese or Korean or Vietnamese. But Mulcair is the strongest candidate and by all logic would be the next Canadian prime minister in a fair election. But they haven't had fair elections in Canada, nor referenda in Europe or North America lately, so that's certainly not a given here. So the long campaign happened because Harper announced earlier, under a new law requiring a fixed date for elections, that it would take place October 19th. And by triggering it, he now hopes to beat all the recession talk and probably has some false flags up his sleeve for the Canadian people, like, oh, let's go stage a big false shooting in Ottawa, as an example, since he will not shut up about national security, which basically just means more slavery for Canadians, if that's even possible, even when no one cares about the issue. So Mulcair is a no-nonsense sort of guy who rose up from the Quebec politics and apparently served as a cabinet minister in an early Canadian government. Trudeau's the son of course, the famous Playboy Prime Minister, Pierre Trudeau. So, but he represents the young and somewhat good-looking faction. So if you're young and good-looking, you have a faction in Canada. But Mulcair gave a quick and dirty press conference in response to Harper's request to dissolve Parliament, while Trudeau said, if opportunity knocks, it can always come back later, and kept to his official schedule, arriving in BC, British Columbia, to attend the massive gay pride march in Vancouver and giving a long press conference and answering numerous questions from reporters. Harper took just 5 questions, no follow-ups. Mulcair took no questions. So if it's a free and fair election, Mulcair wins, and there's always the possibility of a condominium power sharing by Mulcair's New Democrats and Trudeau's Liberals. So far, Mulcair and Trudeau seem to be pretending that the other one doesn't exist, and the only opposition is Harper. But if Harper wins, fairly or not, he would be the first Canadian prime minister since 1820-something to serve 4 terms. So the key words are long march, national security, coalition, recession. So I would add icebreaker, but that remains to be seen. Probably not an issue now that the TPP does not pass, and Harper doesn't have to explain why Canada is ordering icebreakers from the Philippines right now. So anyway, that's my whole opinion on Canada. We'll be back with astrology, and I don't know, is there a mind op behind Cecil the Lion? I don't know. I'm just suspicious.
Well, Sean, there's only one question you have to ask. Do you feel sorry for the African lion or the lion African?
5-act. They were up there with the likes of Def Leppard, Journey, and the Steve Miller Band. Yeah, so I've seen, let me see, Three Dog Night, Steve Miller. We're going to see Pat Benatar, and I'm going to try to get back from Vegas to go see B-52s and English Beat. So it's been a great lineup at the OC Fair, and the OC Fair is so fantastic. It's a great fair atmosphere. You get to eat all kinds of weird, creepy food, chocolate covered bacon and deep fried triple cheeseburgers on a Krispy Kreme donut. Blah.
Yeah, the fairs are just giant experiments in cardiovascular, carticide, if you will.
Yes, exactly right. They actually, and they're proud of it. They actually have the big posters of the nurses with the paddles on the thing advertising their food. They're actually telling you, eat this food, you'll get a heart attack. And I also want to say hello to my darling friend, Anna DeVito. She's finally listening to the show. Hey, Anna, how you doing? Ooh, eep, op, work. That means I love you. So, Anna, I'm glad you have listened to the show. And Anna has a question. Okay. I have a friend who has a question about the Jewish Shemitahs. Shemitas? What do you think? Well, we had JP on. JP is our resident expert on all things Hebrewish or Judaic. So, I'm just curious. What's actually the question? Why does anybody call me? I know this is. Unknown. It's just probably some telemarketer or something. Okay. Well, what's the question? What do I think about the Jewish Shemitas? I know. All I can tell you is that I believe, along with a group of others, that coming this September 14th, 15th, when Rosh Hashanah happens, that we're moving into the 49th and 50th year of the Jubilee, where land is returned and And yeah, see, even JP is Skyping in going, I have no idea what a Shemitah is. So thank you, Anna, for the question. That's completely non sequitur. So I don't, I don't know. Nobody seems to know. I've put it out to my table of the Jewish cabal, the conspirators that run the world, of which JP is ahead. JP, if you're part of the Jewish conspiracy, join up, will you? So you can loan me $50. All right, I've been ragging and raging about this immigration thing. Obviously, I seem to be alone with Lou Dobbs and I guess Donald Trump. Wow, Donald Trump on this subject. But the biggest thing I've been so pissed off about is that tech firms are saying that, we have a shortage of technical people, so we need to import people from India or Pakistan or God knows where. And I told you that Disney World was replacing their entire IT department with basically Pakistanis and Hindus, or basically Indians and Pakistanis. And they were shipping them all in and then forcing the people to train the people that were going to then take their jobs. So these IT positions go for a pretty good amount. So you figure you're going to be making $120,000, maybe $140,000 at an IT position. Well, if they bring somebody in who's smarter than you, better at computers than you. Apparently, Indians invented computers something like 40,000 years ago, if you listen to Michael Cremo. So they had computers and flying saucers and Vimanas and all these wild wars that are talked about in the Bhagavad Gita. And, where Arjuna, who's the great historian of the hero of the Bhagavad Gita, is talking to Krishna, who's supposed to be the god of love and peace. And he plays a flute and he makes love to all these women and he steals their clothes while they're bathing. And he's a little bit of a mischievous scamp of the gods, if you will. But the entire point of the Bhagavad Gita, which is what the Hare Krishnas were all about. And by the way, Hare Krishnaism was brought to the United States and or if not outright invented, I'm not kidding, by Abbott and Costello. I'm not kidding. By Abbott and Costello, Lou Abbott and Costello actually started the Hare Krishna movement at a house in Box Canyon up in Ventura, which, by the way, for a period of time, I think Charles Manson and his gang also lived in. And now it's inhabited by a guy named Richard McDonald, which is a whole other weird story. So, but yeah, it was brought to this country by Abbott and Costello for whatever reason. Now, I've been to the Hare Krishna temple in India, and they wouldn't let me in. It's all white Americans inside, and it's beautiful. It's like heaven. And you're outside in this squalid, muddy, just crap-strewn street. Saying, hi, I'm from America. I want to see what you're thinking. Nope, thanks for coming, but nope, not letting anybody in. So, like I said, all white Americans running this thing, which means it's got to be some kind of front for the CIA. It's got to be some kind of front for the CIA. So, the challenge of this being is that they're shipping all these low-rent tech people in. And as I said, if the Indians did invent the personal computer like 40,000 years ago, maybe that's why all their names look like websites. Vajra Sim Gujinda Inda RevolutionRadio.com. Because Alice Thornquist, and this just got my hackles up. This was in the LA Times. Alice Thornquist, a Washington lobbyist for the high-tech firm Qualcomm. Yeah, there you go. Qualcomm. There's a name you can trust. But she took the stage at a recent Qualcomm underwritten conference to remind her audience that companies like hers face a dire shortage of university graduates in engineering. There's nobody graduating with engineering degrees. And the urgent remedy she adopted was, of course, to raise the cap on visas for foreign-born engineers. This is Mark Zuckerberg as well, saying that he wants something like 250,000 more Hindus in this country with high-tech degrees. Now, please remember, when the British left India, they left them the largest democratic government in the world with parliament. They left them banks, and they left them excellent schools. They have more valedictorian 4.0 students there than we have kids. So we're not going to, and they speak English. Not great English. I always love how when you call tech support, they always pretend they're from Ohio or something. Oh, how may I be helping you today? What's your name, Haji Baba? Oh, it's Ted. Hello, I am Ted. How may I be helping you? Why, shut up. I can hear the ox carts in the background. I know you're in Bangalore. And here she says, although our industry and other high-tech industries have grown exponentially, our immigration system has failed to keep pace. The nation's outdated limits and convoluted green card process have hampered in the hiring of the talent that we so desperately need. Well, what Tornquist didn't mention, by the way, was that Qualcomm may have had more engineers than it needed because only a few weeks after her June 2nd talk, the San Diego company announced that it is going to cut its workforce, of whom 2/3 are engineers, by 15%, or nearly 5,000 people. So while she's complaining they don't have enough engineers, they're going to fire 5,000 of them. And the mismatch between Qualcomm's plea to import more high-tech workers and its effort to downsize its existing payroll hints at the complete, sheer, utter lying and phoniness of the high-tech sector's persistent claim of a, quote, shortage of U.S. graduates in what they call the STEM disciplines, which are science, STEM, S-T-E-M, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. S-T-E-M, STEM. That's what it stands for. It's an acronym. In the race for the future, America's in danger of falling behind. So President Obama stated in 2010, oh, I'm sorry, that was him talking. In the race for the future, America is in danger of falling behind. Boy! He does that at the end when they turn the mics off. He labeled the crisis. My fellow Americans. Boy! Our generation, he labeled it our generation's Sputnik moment. The high-tech industry, the high-tech industry contends that U.S. universities simply aren't producing enough graduates to meet demand, leading to what they call a skills gap that must be filled from overseas if the U.S. is to maintain its global dominance. So in order for us to maintain our global dominance, we need hundreds of thousands of highly educated technical personnel to transport into this country to take the jobs away from, mostly white people. I can't say it's white, just Americans. It's not white. I'm talking about Americans now. But low unemployment rates among computer workers imply that demand has outpaced supply. Says Jonathan Rothwell of the Brookings Institute, companies struggle to fill job vacancies for skilled programmers and other STEM fields. Yet many studies suggest that the STEM shortage is a complete and utter myth. In computer science and engineering, says Hal Statsman, in computer science and engineering, apparently we have plenty of people. And technology education at Rutgers, the supply of graduates is substantially larger than the demand for them in the industry. But Qualcomm is not the only high-tech company to be aggressively downsizing, because this is Facebook as well. This is Zuckerberg going after hundreds of thousands of new foreign visas to ship people in. Not only that, but when they're doing tech support, they have them on ships. They take these immigrants, put them on boats, take them out to the 3-mile limit, and then they have their phone banks there offshore. Then every couple of months they come in, they dump their trash, their dirty laundry, and whatever else. And this is how they get around a lot of the immigration stuff. Because the computer industry led by Hewlett-Packard and Microsoft cut 60,000 jobs last year, according to the outplacement from Challenger, Gray, and Christmas. That's a name for a firm. Challenger, Gray, and Turn down for what? The electronics industry paired an additional 20,000 positions. I actually played that in my spin class this morning. I was like, oh my God, can you please not play this song? Nevertheless, high-tech employers such as Qualcomm, Google, Microsoft, Facebook are lobbying so hard for more latitude in employing workers on what they call an H-1B visa, which sounds a lot like a flu virus. But these are designed to serve high-skilled immigrants, but enable the importing of Indian and Chinese guest workers to replace older, more experienced, but more expensive domestic workers. Visa issuance is capped at 85,000 per year, including foreign holders of U.S. advanced degrees, but a bill sponsored by Senator Orrin Hatch of Utah is now going to raise the limit to 195,000. Good old Orrin Hatch of Utah. Thank you, Orrin Hatch. Why do you still have a job? If you can make the case that our security and prosperity is under threat, it's an easy sell in Congress and the media. So we're going to take Chinese communists and hand them some of our most sensitive security and data positions, okay? But Michael Teitelbaum at Harvard University says he's got a book called Falling Behind, Boom, Bust, and the Global Race for Scientific Talent, which challenges claims of a STEM shortage in the U.S. Despite its cost-cutting initiative, A company spokesman says Qualcomm continues to have open positions in specific areas and still faces a skill deficit in all areas of today's workforce, especially engineering. Well, that could just be San Diego, because San Diego is basically Mexican sailors, hookers, and tattoo parlors still. Oh, and SeaWorld. So there's good work if you're a dolphin. But fears about an American deficit in science and technical know-how have erupted regularly since World War II. So an entire generation has been told that this was a great national emergency and that we needed scientists. This is from the chairman of MIT's physics department. Now they're out on the street, and naturally they feel cheated because they spent all this time becoming STEM workers, and now there's no jobs. California aerospace workers in the 80s and high-tech engineers after the dot-com collapse in 2000 felt the same dizzying sensation. It doesn't help that we have a president that has now banned our ability to send a man into space. So nailing down demand and employment in STEM fields is difficult because there's no single accepted definition for a STEM job. Anyway, it's unlikely that such hard numbers will silence the drumbeat for more high-tech immigration. Teitelbaum says as long as big companies have Congress's attention, the lobbying opposition is weak. There's no interest organization for Americans that's as well organized and financed to say that this is an emperor with no clothes on, that it's a complete myth. So there's that. Okay. What do we have? Do we theoretically, hypothetically, we had somebody call in, but it's okay. I'm sorry. Okay. Thank you, Cliff High, for translating what my friend Anna DeVito was trying to say. She meant Shemitah, the 7-year cycle that has a 7 of 7 cycle ending this September. I think that's what she meant. So, and here's from JP. To answer my friend Anna's question, thank you, Anna, for just basically tossing a banana into the monkey barrel. 5775. The last Shemitah year on Rosh Hashanah was in September 2014, corresponded to the Hebrew calendar year of 5775. The 50th year of the land, which is also a Shabbat of the land, is called Yov in Hebrew. Well, JP, you want to just pipe in and call us back? Was JP online?
I'll try and drag him in right now.
Okay, try and drag him. It's much better to have JP explain this. Anyway, it's Yovel in Hebrew, which is the origin of the Latin term jubilee.
Well, come on, hang on a second. I've got to turn this off. There we go. Yeah. Turn that one off. That's right. Hi.
Okay, Shemitah. Am I pronouncing it correctly?
Shemitah. Bless you.
Give me
Bless you.
Thank you. Gesundheit. All right, so give me the rundown on Shemitah.
I think it's the last year of the year before the Jubilee, which is Cliff said Yovel, because there's no J sound. So there's no J letter. There's no letter that goes J. But so it's always Y, and that's that Yod, that tiny little finger pointing, apostrophe like letter. Yes. So I think it's the 7th, because hang on, go. Aleph, Bet, Gimel, Daled, Hey, Vav, Zayin, Het, Tet. Tet is the 7 year.
Every time you do that, I get hungry for a schmear. I don't know why, but
I have no idea what you're talking about. Anyway,
a schmear. You know what? Come on, a schmear.
No,
a schmear. You don't know what a schmear is?
We don't have schmears in Britain.
Oh, of course you do. A schmear it's a schmear. I want a schmear of cream cheese on my bagel. Give me a schmear.
Oh, a schmear. All right, I see. Yeah. I thought it was some kind of like a blintz with a pickle on it or something,
No, it's mostly.
Do you have blintzes?
It's either that or slander on the internet. I'm not sure. A schmear.
It's funny. It's funny the way you pronounce, because a lot of people who pronounce Hebrew and Yiddish, they do it with this kind of very formal, what we call frum kind of accent, which is like yo, you do it, but you sound like the people that I grew up with, and they say Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. It's kind of like a slang way of saying it.
You know what I sound like?
Instead of Ross Hush-
I sound like an Irish kid that was raised by a Jew. That's what.
yeah, more or less.
So, or it's like whenever Alex Trebek on Jeopardy, Trebek on Jeopardy gets a French word, he goes completely froggy. He's like, the word will be rendezvous, but he'll like, it's like suddenly he's like Pepe Le Pew all of a sudden because he's all proud about being raised in Quebec and all that. All right, so how does this? So my friend Anna was saying, Anna DeVito said, I have a friend who has a question about the Jewish. I said Shemitas.
Shemitas. Schmerl. See, there's a Schmerl.
Yeah. What
is a Schlemiel?
Yeah, of course, it's a Shemitah.
And
we talked about this. We talked about this over and over again. Look, everybody behind the scenes that I'm talking to says there's some really big financial stuff coming down, right? And I would say it's between September 15th and let's give it a big window between then and October 20th. We already have an announcement by the Federal Reserve that says that they will accept or go to or do something with some kind of alternative currency, which is really weird when you consider that now the Federal Reserve has printed so much of its own crap money to inflate everything that now they recognize that it's worthless, and even they are going to accept something other than the paper they print, which is number one, and that they're going to accept some alternative currency by October 20th, which is going to be a huge change. Now, if we're coming into, and here's my question for you, if we're coming into the Yovel or the Jubilee, this is God saying that every 50 years that all the money is to change hands, that you predate all the debts and you give the land back to the people that originally owned it, which was God's way of naturally saying that I don't want money and land to accumulate in the hands of 1% of the people, which of course is exactly what we have now. It's exactly what everybody's pissed off about. It's exactly what they're rioting about in the squares and whatever in London, and why they're so pissed off at Wall Street. And yet there's a whole series of biblical laws where God, not only, or whomever, the great intelligence or the big giant head or whoever you want to call him, says that, yeah, this is a bad thing. We don't want this. And every 50 years, because of interest banking cycles that all go on sevens, it's all sevens and whatever else. But somehow, some way, we're coming into a 49th year where you're supposed to let the land lie fallow for 2 years. You return the land to the people that originally owned it. You declare a universal bankruptcy, if you will, and a jubilee where all debts are forgiven. Do you see that coming? And do you think it's going to be violent when we actually get there this fall?
Well, number one, I don't know about economics and stuff like that. It's all
but
just.
You know about these laws. You know.
I do know that. Well, I know about numbers, right? And I do know about the 50 years. And I think the 50 years originally came from the cycle of Venus as it swung around and came close to us every time, and everybody crapped themselves. So they thought, right, okay, that's God just warning us that there are things that are more important than money. Let's do this thing every 50 years, and we can count 50 by having 7 sevens. That's great. And then one spare, that'll do. And we can make the preparation. So that's, I think the Jubilee year is a result of Earth changes and solar system changes that have kind of given it's like a constant reminder of your death.
Let me give you one other thing too, because now 7 years ago, as of September 11th of 2008, whether you know it or not, was the gigantic stock market crash. Was the crash of the markets where $3.5 trillion disappeared, where it just vanished. And it occurred, in my opinion, again, and I've got proof to back this up, it occurred between 9 a.m. and 11 a.m. of September 11th of 2008. Just, I think, tipping the hand, saying that the same people that knocked over the World Trade Centers were responsible for this giant hack. They tried to pin it on the Iranians, I guess, but Bush just wasn't smart enough to make that fly. But that was 7 years ago from September 11th. So now we're coming into 2015, 7 years later. 7 years before that, again, to the day, was, of course, a massive crash of the stock market, and 9/11. That was 7 years before that. If people remember that 7 years before that, which was September of 94, the bond markets completely crashed. Somewhere, it wasn't September 11th, but it was around the 7th to the 15th or so. But then before that, goes 7 years again. On October 17th, you had a massive stock market crash in 1987. And then go 7 years before that, you had the beginning of the hard recession, which is basically what brought Ronald Reagan into office. But it was October of 1980. and Reagan was elected the next month. But I mean, my God, we were looking at 22% interest rates. Gold was $1,000 an ounce back then. I mean, I put myself through college with like $5,000 worth of gold, which became worth, I don't know, a bunch after that. But then 7 years before that, we had what some people call the end of the Bretton Woods Agreement. But 7 years before that, we had the oil and stock market crash again. But that was also October 1973 when the massive oil crisis hit. So this 7-year cycle it's nothing to screw around with.
So yeah, I mean, this is and it's a fantastic history that you just gave there, and you see that these things are happening every 7 years, and there's there's all these different cycles about natural cycles of 7 years that we experience as well. And then there's Saturn, which is each quarter turn is a 7-year cycle, so that you get four returns, and then you get the Saturn return, and Saturn rules money as well, doesn't it?
Yeah, I mean,
it rules the Jews as well.
We have Saturn, and we have Saturn in Scorpio,
yeah.
And Saturn in Scorpio is all about sex and death.
Yeah.
Look, we're gonna. I mean, when we come back, we're gonna get biblical on your ass, baby, because
get biblical
these
on their asses,
economic
yes.
cycles are tied to that's Jewy Lewis and the news. It's the news.
It's Jewy Lewis and the Jews.
Yeah, it's Jewy Lewis and the Jews. There you go with Jacob's Ladder. Actually, a song written by Bruce Hornsby. If anybody remembers Bruce Hornsby did that song a long time ago where they passed the law in '64 to help those who don't have a little more, and we didn't give them enough, so they burned a bunch of cities down. The end. So there's Bruce Hornsby. Okay, so yeah, and Jewy Lewis and the Jews. So this, you guys want to know this is the real deal. You want to know the real deal? This is not theory. This is not stuff. This is not some government insider that, that told David Wilcock he was a Martian or something like that. This is the word of God here. So put your hands on the radio and feel the warmth of my sincerity, brothers and sisters. And while you're at it, because Reverend Angry asks you not only to feel the Holy Spirit flowing through you, but right now, you're going to help us at Revolution Radio because we're starting the revolution, brothers and sisters. I tell you that if for a $50 donation to the station, we will give you a 1-ounce bar of silver. I'm talking silver. I'm not talking Federal Reserve notes. I'm talking real life money. We'll give you real life money for $50. Donate it right now to revolution-radio.com, revolutionradio.rocks. Reverend Angry, will personally heal your acne. Right now, put your hand on the radio right now. Brothers and sisters, I want you to feel it now. Feel the Holy Spirit, and feel the Holy Spirit reaching into your pocket and giving $50 to Revolution Radio. I'm serious. Right now. Calling in. So, there you go. So, for a $50 donation to Revolution Radio, Reverend Angry will say a personal prayer for you. Oh, now he's barking. Okay, we have JP's dog with.
Yeah.
Let's hear him when he's barking.
Now you're sort of talking and doing music.
See, that's the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit, bark, my friend, bark, because the Holy Spirit's in you.
He's barking in tongues.
That's right. Those are the tongues. That's the Holy Spirit moving through your animal. He's talking as your totem. He's telling you right now in Malamute to give $50 right now, because he likes the Reverend Angry voice. We've been trying to get him to talk for 10 minutes, and he won't talk. Now I'm doing the funny voice. Now he's barking away. So put your hands on the radio, feel the warmth of my sincerity for a $50 donation to Revolution Radio, because we had a bad month, brothers and sisters. It's been a harsh start to this August. I can tell you it's hot. I can tell you it's sweaty. I can tell you it's muggy. But once again, for $50, we'll give you a 1-ounce silver bar. So give now to revolution-radio.com, revolutionradio.rocks, or freedomslips.com. Give your love donation. Hear my totem animal bark in the background. What do you say, brother? What do you say?
What do you say?
There we go. All right. So look, let's see.
It doesn't respond immediately. It takes a little while. The mic is open now.
That's very cool. He's a radio talk show host after all. He likes it when I do my funny voice. All right, but once again, look, God commanded the Israelites to have, not only were you to rest from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. By the way, the only reason we do it on Sunday, as Martin Luther said to the Pope He said, look, if you can find anything in the Bible that disagrees with what I'm saying, you can roast me at the stake. And the Pope said, when's the Sabbath? And Martin Luther said, well, from sundown Friday to sundown Saturday. And the Pope says, no, it's Sunday. You know why? Because I say it's Sunday. And that means your dopey scriptures don't matter. I'm God's representative on earth. You do what I say because I'm the vicar of Christ and I'm the one holding the trust for the return of Jesus. So you do what I say, boy, because he was actually Barack Obama. So, so now you are not only commanded to rest on the seventh day. It is. You were not only supposed to rest on the seventh day, but you were supposed to do an economic slowdown as well. None of this 24-hour stuff, none of this staying open all the time. But in the seventh year, if you don't rest in the seventh year, once again, Shemitah, am I saying it correctly now? You shall not sow in the field or prune your vineyards, from Leviticus 25, 3 and 4. But if the Israelites did not obey this command, they would experience economic collapse and other calamities. Quote, I will destroy your high places and cut down your idols, and the land will be made desolate, and your cities waste. Then shall the land enjoy her Sabbaths. So in other words, that's Leviticus 26, 30 and 34. You don't go to bed when God tells you to go to bed. God will make you go to bed. So, and what would be if the Sabbath was disobeyed? Would turn into a judgment of economic collapse because the people turned from God. We could call it the Shemitah, 7-year cycle of economic judgment, a Sabbath rest or a crash from economic activity in the form of a forced rest or a forced Sabbath. So, and I told you, it's in 73 was the oil shock, the end of the Bretton Woods Agreement. That's when they were rationing gas. 1980 was the hard recession when it began, which basically brought in Ronald Reagan. But I still remember in 80, 81, interest rates being 22% after Jimmy Carter just totally fooked the economy. 87, October 17th, 87 was the stock market crash. And I managed to predict most of the cycles from that point on all the way through the 90s. Simply because I used that point as the low point and then used a Fibonacci wave curve along with a lot of other psychic hoobajoo and mumbo jumbo to successfully predict how high the market would go all through the 90s. Then the bond market crashed in 94, 7 years later. 7 years later was 9/11, and now 7 years later in 2008 was the stock market crash. $3.5 trillion just disappeared from the global market, and what's it going to be? Coming up on September, something's going to happen. And I'll give you from September 15th. And it's interesting that the Fed looked at October 20th because that was when the stock market crash happened in 1987. So each Shemitah year most often starts and ends in September. From September to December is the Shemitah year. And each of these crashes we've experienced as a nation since 1973 they've been on Shemitah years.
Usually on Rosh Hashanah.
Yeah, on Rosh Hashanah.
And that's the thing. I think that's the key to it. We should be looking at the Hebrew dates of these things rather than the Gregorian dates of these things.
I agree. I completely, because it's all a lunar calendar, and all of our economics and our economic cycles and all that are all based on lunar calendars. So, we're with the Gregorian calendar the Julian started with the Julian, then the Gregorian calendar. It's not. The solar calendar is simply just not in tune with the cycles of the Earth. So some other weird things happened in 73 because we got off on this economic thing. But 1973 marked the end of Bretton Woods. Now, Bretton Woods started in I don't think it was 45. I think it actually started in 44 as the war was kind of winding down. I could be wrong, but I seem to remember that Bretton Woods began, or this big meeting began, kind of before the war was over. It could have been 45. But it marked the end of the Bretton Woods Agreement because the dollar was backed by gold. And it's very interesting because also in 73, and this had a huge effect on my future at the time. My stepdad was saying, well, I'll set up a college fund for you. What do you want? And at that time, gold was $32 an ounce. And Nixon was the one that then said, okay, I don't know how they did it, but now they suddenly said that citizens could own gold again. And it was $32 an ounce. You can buy $32 an ounce worth of gold. So I asked my dad to buy me $5,000 which was like lunch for him, but $5,000 in gold. Bought $5,000 in gold coins. I think we bought Eagles, double Eagles, I think, and mostly Krugerrands actually. But it was also that year that America lost the war with Vietnam, and was the start of Roe v. Wade. By the way, this is when 1973 was when abortion was made legal, which then led to, look, I'm for it or against it. I'm just saying that the political, social, and economic ramifications of abortion managed to, I don't even know, I can't say killed. I say, fetal abortion or whatever you want to say, but 60 million people got caught up in whatever that Holocaust is. That whole thing about, oh, my body's mine, and women have the right to do all this stuff. And, look, for good or ill, one way or another, there were 60 million abortions, plus or minus, there's probably more, performed in the United States up to now. It's probably closer to 70 million now. But we lost the Vietnam War, or we just quit the Vietnam War. We didn't lose. We did not lose a single engagement with the enemy in Vietnam. It was Walter Cronkite who said, "We can't win this war." Shut up, Walter. And I knew Walter, and I said that to his face. I'm like, you're the one that lost us that war. You're the one that said we can't win it, even though everything around you was showing us that we could have taken those guys in our sleep if you just turned us loose. So in 7 years from the Shemitah year, we would have the hard recession of 80, from the crash of 87, the bond market crash of 94, followed by the 2001 crash, the 2008 crash, 7 years later, all strikingly taking place every 7 years. You would think there's a pattern. But what's even more amazing is that these last two crashes of 2001 and 2008 happened at the peak moment of the year. Now, this is where I'll throw this to JP because he knows a little bit more about this, but it was called the 29th of Elul on the Elul. It was the 29th of Elul on the sacred God-made biblical lunar calendar. And this particular day in the Shemitah was a very special day because on this day, the 29th of Elul, which happens once every 7 years, was the last day that Israelites had to scramble to erase debts and settle accounts by year end. So it's sort of like, I don't know, there's no real way to, it's a universal.
It's like that just the day before the tax thing's supposed to be in. Yeah, he's going now. He's really off. Yeah, he's barking, he's jumping around, he's chasing his tail, all that stuff. He's doing
that's
dogs.
Because Reverend Angry asked for $50.
Reverend Angry
send us $50, we'll send you a bar of silver. Nope.
No response.
In the same way, now God has given us a sign of this through the two biggest pointed stock market crashes in American history, 2001 and 2008. Both happened on the Elul, on that particular trigger. Could you, JP, since you are erudite and a scholar in this field, would it be possible for you to find out when the next 29th of Elul would be? Give me a date. I'm not asking you to do it now, but maybe tomorrow or Wednesday when we talked about. But if it's the 29th of Elul and we have a special day, we can make a lot of people rich. I mean, these both occurred on the 29th of Elul, so there's no small miracle here. But the very word Shemitah means to let fall or to release. So because it's about releasing debt, you tried to collect everything before the seventh day, because before the end of this year, because then you repudiated it. You just went in and said, okay, all debts are wiped out. So you obviously wanted to collect before you did that.
All right. So the 29th of Elul this year is Sunday, the 13th of September.
Holy crap.
Therefore, the last day will be 11th of September, 2015.
No.
Brothers and sisters, you heard it here. The 27th of Elul is the last working day of the year, 5-7 blah blah blah, and here we are on the Tishri. The first is the 14th, so that's Rosh Hashanah.
Okay, so what's the 20? So the 29th of Elul. So you're saying the crash could either be that Friday or that Monday?
It's going to be September 11th again.
JP, we need that tone you play, the bum bum bum.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that one.
That's why you listen to Strange Universe. That's why we have 2 million people listening to the show. This is great stuff because on the last day of the biblical year, the fall of the stock market experienced its biggest point losses ever. And what's more amazing is that the 2008 stock market crash happened on the 7th month of the sacred calendar at the 7th year, falling 7% with $700 billion bailout plan. And the market felt that the 29th day of Elul, or that's 777. So once again, this is the finger of God. This is the great Yod showing that this is some kind of divine punishment. Because how many 7 signs do you need to see to see that some great hand, that the great creator or providence's hand is on this 7-year economic judgment cycle.
Yeah, not only that, it's the 27th of Elul, 2 and 7 is 9, so that's the 9 of September. There's another 9 going in the 9/11 mix there. So there's a lot going on, isn't there? Anyway,
By the way,
okay, yeah,
yes.
I was just going to say, just going to look it up for 2001, just for the crack.
Okay.
I'll tell you in a minute. On you go.
All right, so while you're doing that, the biblical number 7, let me give you the sacred geometry of 7. It has nothing to do with luck, by the way. The number 7 means fullness or completion, and it's where we get the word several, or to sever, or cutting off.
Oh, sorry, I left the mic open.
No, it's okay. It's fine. So the blessings, I always have my cats meowing, so it's fun to have a dog. So the blessings of America are being cut off by the 7-year cycle God is using to awaken us to repent from sin and, well, I don't know, turn to our greater nature. You should say turn to Jesus, but why would you turn to Jesus when these are all Jewish cycles? But what's even more interesting for me are the several signs that Yahweh gives you of all this stuff. Because back in the midst of the 2008 crash in October, well, it's all kinds of stuff. What did you have? Do you have it all up there?
I have, when did it was September the 11th, 2001 was the 23rd of Elul. And that means that the 29th was the following Monday. Which absolutely means nothing according to our theory. What was that other year? 2008. Let me just look up 2008. Because these cycles, they shift around, didn't they?
Well, 2008 was September 11th as well. Although,
right. Which was Elul the 11th.
Okay, so the actual crash, when they looted the accounts, and once again, I've said this theory before, and I'll say it again. I believe they used the Promise 2 software, an artificial intelligence software to backdoor and loot the markets. And this was something that was done specifically by the whole Bush-Clinton crime syndicate, and that Obama was put in place to basically drive the getaway car on the greatest bank robbery in human history. And, and again, with Obama, we voted for him. Why? Because we wanted hope, we wanted change, we wanted peace, we wanted, less invasiveness, and if Bush just tore up the Constitution, well, Obama just basically cut it into smaller pieces and used it as toilet paper, because we got everything that we didn't want. We got more war, we got more security, we got more NSA, we got more, again, he makes Nixon look like a piker. I mean, Nixon bugged 2 hotel rooms and he gets impeached for it, and Obama bugs the world and everybody thinks he's a big hero. But anyway, for some time now, it's in October. Well, okay, go ahead with what you were going to say if you found the other date.
2008, as I said, is again not connected too much because this history is on the 30th of September on 2008. But it was Elul the 11th. I mean, September and Tishri and Elul that year, 2008, were in step. So the 1st of September was the 1st of Elul, which was something.
Well, the crash started. This is a weird part. The crash started really in secret, and. On September 11th, of 2008, only a few people knew this was happening. It took about 2 weeks for them to then turn around and say, uh-oh, look, something happened here that we're not quite aware of. And eventually they tried to pin it down on Goldman Sachs and whomever else. But it didn't really take effect on everything else. Nobody really knew how bad it was, probably because the computers were shutting down and they were doing all kinds of other crazy things. But anyway, it's I don't even know what to tell you.
Well, I think also it could have been the 29th of that month as a, like you were saying, this is when everything kind of coalesces. That, it was designed that it would, it's like somebody pulling out one brick and then it teeters and it takes a few weeks for it to finally collapse on that date, just timing it right, like a tree falling down.
Well, by the way, the Shemitah years will not always signify a crash. The Shemitah years can also they can signify prosperity and blessing. But with the Shemitahs of the last 40 years, interestingly enough, since the start of Roe v. Wade in 1973, we've experienced nothing but crashes and trouble as a nation, because 2 nations on earth supposedly have made a covenant with the God of the Bible, Israel and America. And it is interesting, unfortunately it's not so much Israel anymore, but the United States had originally a code of government that was the closest I think we've seen in 5,000 years to something that was based on some kind of, well, it was also based on the government of the Iroquois, but it was based on something from the Old Testament, from the first 5 books of the Old Testament. So it's fitting that God would maybe use biblical signs or harbingers to give us warning, because the historical concrete of this is pretty well documented. This Rabbi Jonathan Cahn's books, he's got some very interesting books. He's got The Harbinger and Mystery of the Shemitah by Jonathan Cahn. And but they're, which have been flying off the shelves like no other Christian book in the last 20 years, because he's accurately pointed to these economic collapses. So, but as Rabbi Cahn notes, the Shemitah year of 68-69 was pivotal because judgment to destruction fell on Israel the year after in 70 AD, which was a Jubilee year, which is sort of a super Shemitah, if you will. So, or Shemitah, I guess that's the way you spell it. But, anyway, I fear the U.S. may experience the same pattern with a crash in the 215 Shemitah, with the super Shemitah of 20. Because remember, we're just moving into this. This is the 49th year into the 50th, but we're moving in this between 2015 and 2016. And I've been telling you this is a wind-up for the massive super crash that's going to come right after the elections of 2016. This is why they're doing Jade Helm 15. This is why they're winding up for a massive war and collapse, because a super judgment of the nation in that year, especially looking to September. Again, the chart I have from Andre Barbeau says it's right after the election. Says it's between September to October, November of next year, with an economic crash of epic proportions. And it's going to descend the U.S. into chaos and civil conflict, fulfilling the words of the angel to Dmitry Duduman, as well as others, of huge civil conflict right before the invasion of the United States, led by quite possibly Russia. We're already being invaded by Mexico, Venezuela, Cuba, Central America. So those in power are really stiff-necked. Quote, "They will not repent. The only true hope is in the resurrection." So some Christians think maybe, I don't know. So LO29 that we were talking about is my goodness, is September 13th, right? September 13th. So, and then Rosh Hashanah is the 14th, and then I think that's and then the blood moon is actually on the 28th, later on that month. So, big stuff, man, big stuff. And let me point out that, can you guys hear me okay? Am I right?
Yeah, you're good. You've got like you're kind of coming in and out though. I don't know what it is.
I don't know why I'm doing that. Okay. Are we good now?
No.
Is it a JP thing? Does JP have? Is it because we're linking it? Oh, JP's gone. Or no, he's not. Something's going on with JP. So, which is okay. We good now? Okay, there it goes. There went. Before we get into horoscopes, let me just tell you that this is how it works. You have 4 cycles of 50. The average lifespan of a nation is 50 years. So. And the idea is that if you don't obey these economic cycles, that after 200 years, after 4 times of not obeying the cycles or the grand jubilee cycle, your nation is destroyed. It's the certain curses is that you're foreclosed on, basically economically first, and then the Lord shall send foreigners to rule over you. I give you Barack Obama as case in point. Nighthawk, are you on the line here? Because you're screwing up our signal.
I'm not screwing up anything. What are you talking about?
You just came on, and now I've got an echo on my signal.
I'm watching your little avatar light up whenever that weird audio bleed that cuts off.
Ain't me. Well, ain't me. What the hell? Don't blame. I'm not the ills of the world. Come on.
No, you're just the ills of the broadcast.
Okay, we've got 2 things. Okay, can you hear me? What's going on? I've got a weird echo on my signal now. Okay, fine. Hello. There we go. Okay, now we're good. All right, so just in brief, because we got to get to horoscopes here, but it's you have 4 cycles. Okay, there it goes. Thank you. We have 4 cycles of 50, and these 4 cycles of 50, after 200 years, if the nation doesn't do it, you're destroyed. You're raped. You're destroyed. You're enslaved. If you look at the Old Testament, you have a baseline of laws and codes, which, by the way, we've been breaking right, left, and center, thanks to the Supreme Court, I might add. Oh, and by the way, I never thought that I would hear these words ever spoken in a sentence. You guys ready? You guys ready for something that will make you laugh and and you will not believe I'm about to state this, but it was in the paper today. You ready? Everybody ready? They are doing an autobiography, a film of Ruth Bader Ginsburg, and she is going to be played by Natalie Portman. I kid you not. I really kid you not. Never thought I would.
That's my evening.
I would never thought that I would say that Queen Amidala is actually going to play Ruth Bader Ginsburg. I figured they would just put a robe and a doily on a hemorrhoid pillow, and she could probably act in the film. Okay, so 4 cycles of 50. If you dissipate these cycles, now the United States really didn't become a country in 1776. It wasn't until we finally, we didn't beat the British. We paid them to go away. Here's 600,000 pounds sterling. And we paid them off for them to leave, with Cornwallis saying, "You Yanks don't pay, we'll be back, we'll burn your capital to the ground," which is exactly what they did when they finally invaded the United States. It did burn the capital to the ground in 1814. But that's which is, by the way, another 200-year anniversary here, because now we've had the War of 1812 and all that other stuff. So really, you could say that the United States became a nation probably when we adopted the Bill of Rights, which would be sometime, let's call it between 1787 and approximately the service of George Washington. Let's call it 1790, maybe 1792 or so. I'd call it 1790. So 200 years plus that. You get 200 years, and then you go into what's called a 5th cycle of discipline. And the 5th cycle of discipline is that now every 7 years you are going to have these big collapses, and that now you have the very last Jubilee, which are the last 50 years of a nation or a country, all come to fruition right about then. So you can literally take, if you want to put everything together, and you want to put it somewhere around, like I said, 1990 or so as the beginning of that. That puts us up to 90, 2000, 2010, 2020, 30. So right about 2040 or 2039, when supposedly the next Messiah is going to come, which is the next, you ready for this? The next one read year in the Mayan calendar, where they predict the return of Quetzalcoatl, and also approximately the ending of the cycle for the United States, because we're going through the progressed sun of Pisces. So that gives you the Mayans, that gives you the Bible, that gives you the mathematics, and pretty much everything, showing that would be the final death knell and the destruction of the United States. So we have a ways to go, but not very far. And I'm saying that what happened in Israel was that when they disobeyed the laws and codes, when they let the kind of shenanigans that the Supreme Court is apparently all for, that's what led to the massive collapse of your country. So there it is. Okay. There we are. All right. So anybody else want to comment on that before we get into something else?
Okay. Let it happen. Bring it on.
Yeah,
we need a reset. Everything needs a reset.
Yeah. It's
if the world were my computer, I'd reboot it. I'd hit the reset button.
Okay, Steve, we got some music for, what are we doing for? Let's read some horoscopes. What do you say, Steve? Okay, we'll get the music set up, and the planets right now, Sun is in Leo, Moon is in, just moving out of Capricorn into Pisces. And do we have to reset the call? No, I don't think so. We're fine now. Venus in Leo, Mars in Cancer, Jupiter in Leo, Saturn in Scorpio, Uranus in Aries, Neptune in Pisces, Pluto in Capricorn. The Sabian symbol for the sun at the moment is an evening lawn party of adults. That's fun. And for the moon, don't have one for the moon today. Apparently nobody felt like posting the Sabian symbols right now. Current Sabian symbol for the moon is the symbol that characterizes the ongoing. Okay, it's the Sabian symbol at 1 degree. Current Sabian symbol for the moon. We don't have one. All right, well, there we go. Okay, whenever you feel like playing the music for astrology. Yes? What's going on? Are we just not doing anything?
I can sing it. There's your horoscope for today.
It's horoscope. For today. And there's Pip, so
that's the music provided there.
All right, folks, how you doing?
Yeah, what happened? What happened? I'm sorry. I have to be AFK a minute. What happened?
Okay, we're just Nighthawk is telling us to reboot the call. We're down to 4K or something, and he says reset the call. Is HY your issues? How are we on the call? I don't know if we're down to nothing. I don't know. Nobody's Skyping me telling me we're off the air.
Look, whatever. He wants me to reset the call. Reset the call. I had to step away.
Here's Hawk.
Am I resetting the call?
I don't know. I guess not. It sounds fine to me.
Actually,
Okay.
I already reset the call.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
So you're good. You're good. Everything's set up.
Babu.
Okay, so here we go. So Aries, here's your horoscope. You can sometimes be quite skilled at recognizing when you're being told a part truth. Our instincts tell us something doesn't quite add up for this week, and we're able to spot inconsistencies in what we're being told that have been overlooked by the person telling us. This week, you are likely to feel a need to probe deeper to establish truth in something you're being told. You could find it emerges quite nicely in its own way without further probing from you. So there you go. That's Aries. My stalwart Tauruses. Many times, let me see. Once again, we see you with more than one choice available and a need to whittle these down to what you believe suits you best. The most appropriate course of action or opportunity is likely standing heads above others, but it might not be quite so easy to recognize what needs discarding or dismissing from what needs considering. One particular opportunity presenting itself now could become more of a focal point this week. With this, you might have actually found what you're looking for, Taurus. Okay, all you chatty Geminis with all your different personalities. My Stargate children, hopefully you've got your Moldavites and your Emeralds on. As something shifts where an arrangement is concerned, you could be inclined to believe your best interests aren't being considered, or someone isn't particularly bothered if proposed change affects you or not. Don't believe your needs or an obligation to you aren't being taken into account. And the coming week could reassure you that you don't have as much to be concerned about as you might believe. Relax and allow someone to prove this to you. My moon children, you Cancers, there could be many welcome and enjoyable distractions on offer, but they might not be helpful in terms of eliminating a concern or fear you have in a particular area of your world. This could surround money and a need to keep a watchful eye on matters financial, or it might involve a loved one who you feel isn't doing much to reassure or support you in some way. As the coming week progresses, reassurance will be forthcoming, so enjoy those distractions that we spoke about. Leo, my lions, I hope you don't get killed by a dentist from Minnesota. If I didn't know better, I'd say you're keen to get this week out of the way in order for something to get off the ground or a personal plan to commence. The cosmos is creating an image of you pacing the floor apprehensively, wishing a particular process would hurry up and commence or come to fruition. In truth, developments this week are integral to progressing what you're pinning your hopes on. Allow coming developments to reassure you a plan is very much moving forward. Virgo, all you fussy anal virgins there, keep your knees locked tight. A need might exist this week for you to adjust to a new set of circumstances or unfamiliar surroundings. This shouldn't pose too much of a problem because the sky is offering much in the way of freedom and comfort, and some Virgos might even enjoy something that can only be described as luxurious. There will be a need for you to accept a routine has changed or fall in line with someone else's routine in some way. Again, you won't struggle. You might even enjoy it. My Libras. Wow, this is going fast today. My Libras, the saying about seeing something eye to eye is an interesting one. Is that not how boxers stand opposite each other before a fight? Because Libra is not only the sign of balance and diplomacy, it's also the sign of open war. So does the saying itself not conjure images of quiet confrontation? You might be aware of how you and a particular person aren't singing from the same proverbial song sheet, and this issue could escalate before it improves. Coming events, however, will reassure you and someone else that finding a way to see eye to eye is, in fact, possible. You Scorpios, if you can get yourself untied to come listen to the radio. This week, restrictive Saturn ends its retrograde phase in Scorpio. Its backward motion started in March, and in June it re-entered Scorpio. From this week, Saturn moves forward. And this is a cause for celebration. Yay! In more ways than one for everyone, but particularly you. And by the way, any Capricorns that you might know. A process that commenced in March that has been on the back burner gets a proverbial green light. Coming developments will ensure you're prepared and motivated in all the right ways. Sagittarius. Soon, Mars is going to enter Leo, and this could enhance desire on your part to learn and explore. It is also possible that you could adopt an aggressive stance where a matter close to your heart is concerned, and this might require attention during the coming week. If you feel a need to instigate a tense exchange, be aware of how unnecessarily defensive or confrontational you could be, Anna. Such passion could be focused in much more helpful, interesting, and enjoyable ways. By the way, for you men out there, if you manage to find yourself a good Pisces or Scorpio woman, marry her. And if you find yourself a Sagittarius, run, just run. Capricorns, this week, your ruling planet Saturn commences its direct motion in Scorpio, finally. So having resided in this intensely focused and passionate sign between 2012 and the end of last year, spent brief time in Sagittarius until June before returning to Scorpio. Its backward and forward activity is reflective of similar activity that you've likely experienced in an area of your world. From this week forward, you start making strides where you have so far been able to make frustratingly small steps forward. Aquarius, all you crazy, crazy Aquarius girls. And by the way, Scorpios, you're now the Phoenix, so I shouldn't even call you Scorpios anymore. You're now Phoenixes. Now, as you listen to this is for my Aquariuses now, so get your tie-dye on and put on your headband and get out your guitar, because as you read this, the moon is either very full, or as you hear this, in the sky, or its fullness influence is waning. So the second of two full moons to occur in July is in Aquarius. And this, in addition, by the way, once again, we have in 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, in August, we've got 5. Yeah, we have 5 Saturdays and 5 Sundays in August, which I find kind of weird.
And 5 Mondays. And also, that'll be an indigo moon if it's in the same sign. Do you remember we were talking about that? If they're a blue moon is in a month, a calendar month, but if it's in the same sign, it's an indigo moon, even more intense.
Yeah, an indigo moon, even more rare. So, once again, the second of 2 full moons to occur in July is also in Aquarius. So this is in addition to Venus moving into your opposite sign of commitment to join 3 other planets, hints at a less than calm week ahead. Drama and pressure will be mounting noticeably this week. All you need to do is trust that both are pushing you toward action and decisions that you've needed to progress for some time, you're going to begin to make. And last but not least,
I like that last bit. Is Aquarius, the opposite of what was it? The opposite of stability, or it's like the opposite of commitment. That's right.
Yes, the opposite of commitment. Yeah. Now we've got Pip all excited now. Okay, just for you. You ready for this? You ready? Ready? You're a Pisces, right?
Pip. I think Pip's a Pisces as well. Aren't you Pisces? Yeah. Anyway, here we go. On you go.
Okay, so here you go. This is especially for you, JP. As an undoubtedly talented Piscean, pescatarian you, knowing, well, once again, you and I both, JP, we don't fight the word genius, I understand. Knowing you aren't fulfilling your true potential in some way is something you would take seriously. We're not talking about artistic or creative talents per se, although you likely possess them. We're talking about focusing a particular ability you possess that has needed channeling for some time. So from this week, restrictions and obstacles are being removed to allow access to where this can be utilized in a fulfilling and satisfying way. Now also, when 2 people experience a difference of opinion, stubbornness kicks in. If enough time passes, both sides forget why they choose to be so stubborn in the way that they did, but assume there must have been a good reason for it. Now, you might believe that this month that you're dealing with more than a mere difference of opinion, a matter close to your heart needs defending. There is a way through that there's a way through that you and someone else can at least agree to disagree. If you want it, you'll find it. So with your very own personal, anyway, so there you go. So there's also your month ahead.
Very interesting. I've got this Chiron thing coming up at the end of the month as well, like Chiron opposite Jupiter,
Right.
which is like something's going to trigger something that will make me explode, and then everything will be better afterwards. Okay. Well, like, that's according to Solar Fire, anyway.
Oh, good. All right. Well, that's cool. Well, solar fire is really complicated. Solar fire time passages is much more fun. So, and last but not least, a newly published video shows a Colorado Springs police officer going to extremes during a November 2013 arrest, slamming a handcuffed 18-year-old woman face down to the ground, knocking out her teeth while she was in a hospital. And the shocking video is part of a lawsuit that's being prepared on behalf of Alexis Acker against the department. The footage was obtained by the Colorado Spring Independence Daily. Actually, everybody in Colorado Springs says the cops are terrible. That if you're in Colorado Springs and you don't have a DUI, you're not a citizen. They'll issue you a DUI when you come in. But the video shows Colorado Springs police officer Tyler Walker, 29, clearly shoving the handcuffed woman into a chair by hitting her in the stomach. He then grabs Acker out of her seat and slams her on the hospital floor. And aside from having 2 teeth knocked out, she suffered trauma to the face, head, teeth, and jaw, migraine headaches, concussion, closed head injuries, memory and cognitive function problems, as well as post-traumatic stress disorder. I think most of what you have before you move to Colorado Springs, don't you? But anyway, meanwhile, conflicting police reports state that Walker either escorted her to the floor or that he rolled her to the floor. I don't know what escorted and shoved. One way or another, you're on the floor.
Escorted you.
Yeah, he escorted her to the floor where her face made constant contact with his boot. The incident took place after officers received calls of a disturbance involving a gun and were sent to check out Acker's apartment. They reportedly found no probable cause, but according to police, the woman was intoxicated and verbally uncooperative with police. And of course, that means death. So while her boyfriend, Tyron Tanks, was wanted, who names these people in Colorado, was wanted on an outstanding warrant according to Walker's report. So they found something. They couldn't just come and not arrest somebody. So Acker allegedly became physically combative because she's a little girl and she's taking on cops with, mace and guns and tasers. When officers arrested her 19-year-old boyfriend, she, that's interesting. She looks to be quite the interesting sort of hot Asian girl, but, maybe she used kung fu on him. She reportedly kicked an officer who pinned her down on a sofa and arrested her on multiple charges, including resisting arrest. By the way, she was not under arrest. How can you be resisting arrest? She lips off to the cops, and then they're going to arrest her, and she fights them. But assault on a police officer. Walker drove Acker to Memorial Hospital for a medical clearance before taking her to jail, quote, due to her intoxication level and combative nature, he wrote. In other words, she was lipping off to a cop. At the hospital, Walker's report claims he told Acker to sit down. When she refused, he pushed her down to the chair, but Acker kicked him in the groin. this is spunky. He said he felt immediate pain and forcefully threw Miss Acker face down on the ground. The officer added that, quote, after my adrenaline wore off. By the way, he's twice this woman's size. She looks to be an Asian woman that's about 5 feet tall. So, yeah. So he said, after my adrenaline wore off, he began to feel pain in his left knee, an injury he allegedly suffered by throwing the woman down. 4 days later, Detective Christine Summersalmi contacted Walker to notify him of his victim's rights. And Acker has been, meanwhile, charged with 5 offenses, including 2 felony assaults on a police officer. She's seeking $500,000 in damages to lingering health problems. She has injuries that will be permanent, but not only the dental, the jaw. She had a head injury. I think she's still with her doctors trying to get to the bottom of what that is. And according to her criminal attorney, Acker has pleaded guilty to misdemeanor obstruction of a police officer and felony menacing. Again, she's 5 feet tall and a girl, receiving a deferred sentence on the felony. Another video released earlier this week after months of legal battles showing officers fatally shooting an unarmed man in Los Angeles after mistaking him and 2 others for robbery suspects. The city of Gardena, the garden capital down the road here, which is more like the Wild West. Look, you go in Southern California, we're in this thin line along the beach. You go anything east of Aviation Boulevard, and you're Cornell Wild and Naked Prey, or you're on a jungle boat. So the city of Gardena paid out $4.7 million to settle a federal lawsuit with the family of the deceased and his brother, who was injured during a confrontation with the police. Local authorities had been struggling to keep the dramatic video private. The incident happened early June 2nd of 2013 when Ricardo Diaz Zafrinio was stopped by police investigating a bicycle theft. 34-year-old was trying to help his brother find his stolen bike when he was rounded up as a suspect. Instead, witnesses said Zaffarino attempted to tell officers that two other bicycle-riding friends they had stopped were the wrong men, and the newly released video showed the cold-blooded shooting of a clearly unarmed man who was trying to help in the neighborhood. So there we go. That's what the cops are up to in Gardena. Hey, if you enjoyed the show today, please tell your friends. Tune in to Strange Universe Radio. Also, please remember that we are listener-supported. So if you want to send us $50, we will send you